for this sort of presentation for many, many years. So KSQ and Saban are with us. They are architects and engineers and construction managers who will shepherd us through the $18.5 million project that the community approved last May, overwhelmingly approved. So Armand is with us. Armand has a long history working with our district, and he is the lead architect and designer on this project. So I will introduce him, he'll introduce his team, and we want to walk you through this presentation that really began shortly after the project was approved. The project was approved in late May of 2018, and we wasted no time in hiring an architectural firm, construction management firm, and then getting our principals and administrators together to start having a discussion about the focus of the project and potential of the project. So this is the first update. You'll see some schematics. You'll hear some conversation around the philosophy behind the design and why we're moving in the direction we are. And then we'll wrap it up with timeline and next steps and what to expect as we get into our first full year of the project. So with that, welcome on.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be invited to share the work that we've been working on over the summer in terms of the advancement of the Phase 1 projects for the new Henhud bond. I'm joined this evening by Robert Bernice from Savin. He's your construction manager. Bob's been making sure we're on task with schedules and budget. You'll hear from him a little later in the process. From the design team, Michael Herzog from the LA group. He's our athletic planner. He'll be taking over the portion of the presentation that focuses on the athletic improvements. So there are three areas of projects that comprise the Hendrick Hudson 2018 bond projects in terms of the Phase 1 improvements. And so we'll talk about each of these three chapters: the security vestibules, the new maintenance building, and then the synthetic turf and the new track and other improvements to the athletic facilities. I'll start with the guiding design principles in connection with the security projects. You'll see that we've been very systematic for all of the improvements to the three elementary schools and the middle school, so visitors will have the same experience in each of those schools. And this is really important for staff training, for learning how to use the technology that's associated with security practices. We want to make sure that your parents and faculty and all your community members have the same experience and the same protocols when they come to visit any of the schools. So our guiding design principles, a separate visitor's entrance. So during non-drop-off and dismissal, there will now be in the new program a separate dedicated visitor's entrance which will lead you into a secure vestibule. The secure vestibule is just as the name suggests, a place that you're buzzed into. It can be a hospitable place that's warm in terms of its feeling and its outlook, but it is nonetheless secure. And then from there you would be buzzed into the school proper. So that series of protocols is a guiding design principle for each of the schools that we'll talk about. We're also very focused on retreat paths. So if any of your staff feels threatened in any way, they have a rear exit out of the administrative suite. So there are many ingredients into a thoughtfully prepared security program for each school. We're partnered with Day Automation, which is the school district's technology consultant. And I won't talk in an open meeting about the types of technology because it's confidential, but I just want to share that there's a layering system that brings the most sophisticated security technology into the schools, and that is part of this entry sequence and training for your staff and your community. We'll move right to the Blue Mountain Middle School. I'll mention that your principals were directly involved in the development of these plans. In fact, John Owen did his own plan that he shared with us, and we actually took some great ideas from it to develop this plan. And I'll skip right to the main entrance. So this is the main entrance to the school, which is between the original school that was built in the early 60s rather, and then the addition that we put on sometime later. So as I said earlier, during drop-off in the morning and pick-up in the evening, these doors would all be open. There's actually three locations along the south edge of the middle school where students would come and go. Those are supervised. And then when those doors are closed, this would be the new secure vestibule that I talked about. So we will, as part of the program, take an existing window opening, carve it down to the floor and then put a doorway in and create a dedicated secure vestibule. And I'll just spend a little bit more time on the middle school because it becomes repetitive as I go to the other schools. There'll be signage that directs a visitor to this new door. There will be a camera where you'll press a button. An administrator inside the suite will look at the camera, what's your business, and then if it's appropriate, buzz the person into the secure vestibule. The secure vestibule can have soft seating, it can have signage. It's not intended to be prison-like, but something that's more like a parlor or something that's more inviting and something that you're feeling more positive about. So from there, each of the schools would have a greeter's workstation. The workstation will have the technology. We're talking about taking licenses and scanning them and creating a sticker that's a badge to get you into the school. This actually is how it works in the school district in the county where I live and where my children go to school. Once you get through the first few weeks, you become very accustomed and your name is already in the system. So it's really the first time that you spend a little more time. Our monitors for the cameras would also be at the greeter's workstation, and then once that business is conducted, the greeter permits the person to come into the outer office, and then finally into the school proper. That's your business for the day. There is a requirement to do a general rehab of the overall administrative suite. So we have a principal, an assistant principal, a shared conference room, the 2 administrative assistants in a common work area, and then retreat paths for everyone that would work in the space. So if anyone wants me to drill down on any subject or you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those along the way. We're going to now move to BV. And to before we go to the blow-up plan, I'll just mention that, yes.
So there are 2 windows here, one from that work area and one from the greeters area, is that right?
That's correct. So
Are those like sliding windows so people can pass them?
correct. And so those windows will have a bullet-resistant film, and they're typically little sliders. And the idea is that there's also from the administrative assistants area a window into the space so that the administrative assistants, if they need to cover for the greeter or just to be aware of who's entering and who's sort of coming and going in the school.
You also mentioned taking driver's license information. Are we going to be doing anything with biometrics?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last word.
Are we doing anything with biometrics with the systems?
So I believe that part of the program is being discussed, and I'm not comfortable, I haven't been part of that discussion in terms of a decision at this point. I might defer to the superintendent.
I was just saying, in lieu of taking licenses, if you take a license the first time, then you get biometrics, you do a fingerprint, and then you don't have to worry about a license again. You just fingerprint in every time. But then your privacy issues.
Armand mentioned day automation. Day automation works with us in a number of areas, and one is the technology infrastructure of our security operations, our existing cameras, the hardware, the software, all of the capabilities. So that's on their radar, that they're putting a package together for what experience visitors and parents would have when they enter. What we do know is whatever we do, it needs to be consistent, but they're looking at that. They're looking at as Armin said, the license scanning, and we would likely purchase a software license to do background checks to the extent that schools are afforded certain information, sexual predators, felons, those sort of things. But that's on their radar to come and present to us. That's now part of the infrastructure of tonight's discussion that will be layered in after.
I thought when we had spoken about, visitors coming in, on the safety committee, we were talking about potentially having different color lanyards. Would you be able to just slide in a name tag? So immediately people, instead of having to read, get up close to read your name tag, they would know immediately by the color of the lanyard that you're wearing that you were a visitor as opposed to a teacher. But we hadn't finalized that, I believe, either, right?
And those are all excellent
Right.
Cultural tweaks and changes that improve safety in the schools. And we spoke again and again about the architecture is just part of it, but the technology and the staff training and the cultural awareness of who's in the school. And we really like data automation because they're also developing an incremental investment strategy for the school system. So you're not required in day one to make all the investments, but to enhance the systems that you already have. There's new technology in cameras. They call it analytics for the camera, so they'll be able to, well, I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's a fascinating complement to the architecture and to your staff training and security programs that you have.
No, but I think it's a very good idea to have basically the same type of entrance in all the schools so that parents and visitors are familiar with procedures and nobody feels, uncomfortable with having to go through whatever they go through. They learn it and there's a better comfort level. Yeah, it's a better system.
And also, staff, once they're trained, can move from school to school. All those procedures and protocols will be identical, and they'll become embedded in the culture at Hennepin School, all positive stuff.
You also mentioned bullet-resistant film before. Is anything being done with the doors? Are the doors going to be any different, or ballistic doors?
So where we are in the process is we're hopeful that we get the board's blessing to move from the schematic level into the technical drawings that we send up to the State Education Department. We actually need to send those up about 5 or 6 weeks from now, and that's to allow us to get the building permit and then go out to bid in time for the summer of 19. And our aim, it's more than aim, we will be prepared to go in the ground to build these projects next summer, so that come September, we've had time to train staff and we're able to open the new schools with these protocols in place. So you're asking some details that I haven't completely vetted yet. We are talking about for metal stud walls, putting in, there's bullet-resistant layers that we can add to the sandwich of the wall, so it doesn't have to be a block wall to be bullet-resistant. But we're on the same page with you that it should be the whole envelope of the secure vestibule that's been thought through. So to have a bulletproof glass, but then to be able to punch your piston, that's not productive.
Or slide it, right?
And so we're thinking about that.
No, we've talked about that, so thank you.
So our work with Josh Cohen at BV and the rest of the administrative team, I'll just share with you that the first step that we needed to contemplate was how to get more space in the administrative suite so that we could add the secure vestibule. And the solution that we came up with, and actually this came from administration, is to remove the 2 toilet rooms that are currently within the suite in this area. There's an alcove that's underutilized in the nurses' suite that's already got plumbing in the adjacent toilet room, and improve this to be a new toilet room. And then also across the corridor, there's a copy and storage room that also has plumbing adjacent to it. And for a minimal cost, these 2 spaces could be improved to make unisex toilet rooms for faculty and others that would use those facilities. So that gives us an increase in the aggregate open area that we have to work with in the administrative suite itself. And again, you're going to hear the same strategies and protocols that I talked about at Blue Mountain. You would peel off to have a separate visitor's entrance door into a secure vestibule. Again, we want that to be furnished with soft seating, to have a flat screen that we can push out messages and information to the community. A greeter's workstation, in this area. And for the 3 elementary schools, the program is the same. A principal, 2 administrative assistants, and a greeter's workstation. Files and copy in this area, the principal's office with a retreat method through the teacher's break room, and then also the administrators can come through in this area as well.
After the public reception area, is there a secondary level of secure enclosure? So let's say you get somebody who goes into the public reception and they penetrate the public reception area. Is there a secondary layer where you can secure it and keep them from getting to the rest of the school?
And I think if I understand the question, these doors are locked during non-drop-off in the morning and dismissal in the afternoon. So the only access to the building during that interim period, and essentially the main part of the day is through this visitor's entrance door. So even your,
Well, I'm saying interim, so, right? So you have somebody who gets in here, right? They're in
Yes.
this secure area. Well, now they have access through that door to the rest of this work area, right? So is there secondary security around
yes,
this
sir.
work
Thank
area?
you, for clarifying for me. So this door is also on an electric mag lock. So we have to grant permission for the person to get into the office proper, and then even this door is going to be locked. So there are multiple layers of access that an individual needs to gain permission and then access into the sequential spaces to get into the school proper.
So again, there would be two windows, two slider windows with the greeter and the work area in this proposal as well, right? But so if there was in that middle school, there's
Yes, and
two windows, you can't really see
I
them.
think in this graphic there's actually one from, so that the greeter can see, it's hard to see in this illustration, but there's a window into the secure vestibule and then a window across the main entrance, so that, again, the administrators inside can see who's approaching the school, where they are, and they're not allowed to sort of linger without permission. So at Frank G, one of the, or the challenge for this school is the various levels that the building exists on. And so the sidewalk level is at one elevation, the lowest elevation, and then this wing is at another elevation, and then the administrative wing, where Donna's team is at a third elevation. And the most economical method that we contemplated is for ADA access to come from the right side of the plan in this location and be able to have the secure vestibule door up at the elevation of the administrative suite in this area. All right, so if I am in a wheelchair, I would come from the east side of the campus across and over to the secure vestibule door in this area. If I'm able, I would go up the stairs and then in this location. So again, the same sequence of spaces: the secure vestibule, the greeter's workstation, the two administrative assistants, and the principal's office. Everybody has multiple retreat paths back into the sort of the core of the school. Again, this door would also be on a secure lock, so it's the greeter that's permitting access into the office and then into the school if that's appropriate. You can see all the windows here. There are multiple windows from the greeter's workstation, from the administrative assistant, and then windows into the vestibule on the outside in this area.
So nobody's using
That's a closet in there, Alan?
In the public reception area.
I believe that's correct, yes.
There's a closet.
Yes. We tried to steer clear of plumbing, so where the plumbing for the administrator's toilet room is located, we didn't need to disturb it. We were really, the superintendent was super clear. We're not spending dollars unless it's an imperative and a requirement, and we were able to sort of work around some of those pieces in a thoughtful way and not have them take away from the plan.
And all of the principals had input into the design.
Say one more time?
All of the principals, I don't know.
Yes.
Had input.
Multiple meetings, yes.
Okay.
So we started the process with administration. Then we had workshops with all the principals together, and then individual workshops to sort of refine the plan. After the board sees these plans, we're planning to have one more meeting on site so that the principals' teams can be familiar with the plan, and sometimes they have insight or questions that would lead to improvements in the plan.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was having input.
Understood. So,
I'm sorry, and maybe this is a conversation, discussion for later. The closet, what was the point of that?
The closet is where some of the,
this one?
where
Yes.
some of the computers are.
Servers, the-
Okay, no, I was thinking it was like, I was thinking
no,
it's for,
no.
for use, I was
No,
gonna
no.
like, there's,
That'll be locked.
yeah, I wouldn't want
The
to put something
PA
like
is
that.
there. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, that would be locked up, that's what my question was.
Thank you,
Okay.
Enrique. All right, so moving now to Furnace Woods and our work with Dr. Kramer, we actually are proposing to raise the sunken areas of the existing administrative unit so that it's all up at the same elevation with the school. And the solution is to bring an ADA ramp actually out from the parking area. So if I'm in a wheelchair, I can get up to this new porch level underneath the existing canopy. It would be at the same elevation of the school. We looked at a number of options. We looked at ramps. We looked at having an ADA lift. And this was both cost effective, but also functionally just simplified the building and how we access and use the space. So we would be building out new construction in a renovated fashion for the main entry vestibule, the secure vestibule in this area, the greeter's workstation, the shared administrative area, and then the principal's office. So the principal has a retreat path through the nurses' suite in this location, and then the other administrators can get out to the school in this area. And again, I'm spending a little bit less time because it's repetitive in terms of purposely the strategy and the
That's
approach.
very smart.
So if we could change gears and talk about the high school, if we're ready to do that. There were three overarching strategies that we worked with Jim on at the high school. And the first and perhaps the most overarching was this idea of compartmentalization. And the idea is that by strategically adding doors in specific locations during off hours, as an example, we can compartmentalize access to the athletic facilities at the high school. And right now, you're able, in the current configuration, once you gain access into the high school, if you know your way around, you can get to the basement, to the upper levels, and so on. And the idea is, if we have an athletic event, we can block off certain doors and contain access only in those locations. Similarly, with the theater program and access to the theater, we've also looked a lot at the glass on the north side of the cafeteria. We're looking into the cost to put that film on the glass also, but equally important, we proposed the addition of a security fence that would physically keep people away from the glass. And we're talking about having a landscape quality, so it wouldn't be a chain link fence, but something a little bit more thoughtful. But the idea is to prohibit individuals from getting up to the glass and getting up to the cafeteria in that area. We're looking at making modifications to the door hardware so that it's more unified and more in sync with the compartmentalization strategy. And then we're also adding technology so that the historic hall that you come in through would be a secure vestibule. And we're thinking about technology that allows you to scan your own license. And then the greeter who's inside the safe part of this, actually in the curved part of the secure DS, would have, through a microphone, will be able to talk to the person, see that their license is scanned in, and then let them have access into the school property.
So what is the security risk that fence is addressing? So what is the potential scenario for, let's say, an attack right there?
You know, I prefer to not theorize what an example attack could look like, but just physically keeping individuals, I think it's about 30 feet away from the glass itself, is a deterrent and it buys time. And all of the security measures, I actually should have included that in the principles, okay? All the methods and measures that we're incorporating into your schools is about creating time so that when an adult identifies a problem, there's time to call the police, to call your SRO, to get the proper individuals there that can deal with and mitigate the situation.
The reason I ask is it feels kind of close, right? If you're trying to prevent someone from getting to the school, 30 feet is not a lot. would it make more sense to have a fence with a wider perimeter that keeps folks further away? Because what are you worried about? Are you worried about someone running up to the glass? That's what that prevents. If you're worried about someone getting too close to be able to shoot inside, that's too close. So the question is, what are you trying to prevent by having that fence there?
I think, Corey, part of your question will get answered when we get into the track and field design, because there's a potential to use some of that space, that green space, as also part of our athletic facility. So you'll see how the two come together then. Okay.
But the film on the glass, I mean, is that a preposterous expense? That,
I'm so sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I think for some reason, I don't
I think
know
it's the
why.
fan.
It's the fan.
Oh, it's the fans?
The cost of the film. She's asking about how expensive is
How
the
much,
film.
right.
So I'm going to phone a friend here. Do we have a sense of the cost per foot of the film, or is that something we would? I think that's the question. Let us, again, we're in an early design phase. What I'd like to do is thoughtfully report back to the board. once we-
Right, and I'm only asking because we have spoken about different, things being included in the safety committee, and I just want to make sure that we have all options potentially open to us, so.
Absolutely.
Different question. With the compartmentalization, I'm assuming that you're working with the local fire department as well, because there was a concern about compartmentalizing for other emergency situations.
So the state education department is our primary interface, and its administration of the New York State Building Code, and then the SED has its own overlay code. So we actually will be sending these plans up even sooner to get their sort of blessing about how the doors will swing and that part of it. The fire marshal won't have any trouble with a plan like this. Their doors are all wired so that if there's it has panic hardware or smoke detection on both sides, our engineers are already working on those parts and pieces.
Would those doors, I'm sorry, would those compartmentalizing doors, they exist on both floors?
Yes. So to be brief for this evening, I brought the main level, but we have a similar plan for the upstairs and for the basement.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, if you're closing off. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So our second chapter is on the maintenance building. Okay. Let us move to the athletics piece, and Mike Herzog is going to talk with you about that. Yes.
Thank you as well for inviting me to the meeting here. I used to sit on my local board of education, so I know all the hard work that you folks put in, and it's important for your kids and your community. My name again is Mike Herzog. I work with the LA Group. My life, for the most part, in my professional life, has been dealing with athletics for student athletes like your children in PE facilities. So I'd like to talk about your project, and I'm just going to push over one slide. So we have two main features of your project. I see that some of the numbers got there's dark dots where I had numbers before. I'm sorry that something happened in the when we made that print. But two main features. So we have your existing track. So that facility, for its age, is actually worn well. You've done a nice job. Your facilities department's done a nice job keeping it in service. So we're looking to upgrade that right now. The center portion of your track, of course, is your exhibition field. And we are going to move from natural grass to synthetic turf. And then what I call the upper terrace, your field event area, some upgrades there as well. For your track area, there is a long jump, triple jump, and pole vault area. There is two shot puts, and then you have your discus and your hammer throw up in that area. Also, there is an access road that will be used for maintenance staff. But we've also strategically left the green space where you can put some overflow parking. So, that's in a nutshell what's happening up top. But let me focus in on what's happening on the bottom side, where you're investing some money to make the facility a little bit more user friendly. So The track is pretty much the same configuration as you have right now. It's a 6-lane track. It'll have a blue rubber surface on it, and we will have a warranty written in. We want to have a high-quality surface for you, so that'll be redone. The asphalt substrate will be redone as well. Your center turf field, I have some samples that are above the bookshelf over there that we can look at. But we're talking about a synthetic turf carpet that you see at a lot of high schools right now. It would have markings for many of your, well, all of your sports, your spring and fall sports. So we're talking football, soccer, boys and girls lacrosse, and field hockey. So it's truly a multi-purpose venue. We're working out markings right now for the field, and we continue to work with Tom Baker, Jim Mackin. And Marcia was actually here. She was extremely helpful as well, working on the track layouts. So we're working through those guidelines right now. We're looking at different types of infills that you might want to use. I was on the phone with Lisa last week. She was asked some great questions regarding infills as well. So that's the executive version of what we're doing, what is proposed right now, and we're going to be moving into construction documents and sending to the SE. Oh, yes. So we do have the turf over on that side, and if there are questions regarding turf, there are samples that we can pass around, and we also have different types of infills that the school district might want to use as well.
Can you talk a little bit about what the timeline would look like for this project, just so folks understand that this isn't rolling out the carpet and then it's played?
Sure.
Can you go into what demolition may look like, what's involved, and what folks could see over a 9 or 12 month construction period in terms of this facility?
Yeah, so the process right now is, so KSQ, and I'm a sub-consultant to KSQ, we're working on your construction documents right now. This first phase of work, or the first phase of work that KSQ has hired us for, will include the athletic field facilities. The intent is to get our drawings into the state education department in November, mid-November. So, and that starts, then they go through documentation. There's form work that needs to be submitted for both the architectural portion that this is going to be tied to so that you get your construction aid, and they'll also be doing reviews at that point too. I believe the intent, and Bob, maybe you can help me with this, we're looking to bid probably in March or April?
Yeah, March.
So the intent is to have the state education department look at these drawings and approve them from November through February, maybe beginning of March. We put the bids out in March, April, with the idea that we would break ground as soon as Tom and the administration and facilities think it's ready. Generally, we'll start around June 1st. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a lot of work to get done over the summer. I mean, it's an aggressive schedule. We're fortunate, you've hired 7 engineers who are a great construction manager. I personally worked with them in the past on a similar project down in Long Island where I think we started, Bob, right around June 1st in Long Beach, and we finished for a homecoming game in the middle of September.
Middle to the end of September.
Yeah, so that included a turf field and a total track renovation similar to what you're doing as well. In fact, in that facility, we even put in probably about 1,500 bleacher seats as well. So we would start construction around June 1st, and should be done, assuming we have a contractor that's doing their part, because I know we're going to do our part. We should be done mid to end of September.
I just have a quick question. Are we doing anything around the bleachers or
That's what we're talking about over
or
here.
concession stand area? You know, like, because we don't have any big concessions right now for, parents to raise money if continues to come in and
We have that
So-
small concession stand up away.
Yeah, but something, close to the field.
Yeah.
where people
But it's
can
not
just
close to the field.
Yeah, I think once we get closer and zero in on a budget and those sort of things, we'll see if there's any opportunity or interest to add those sort of items to the budget. We also have, over the years, received a number of donations from different boosters of the athletics program, earmarked for renovations or improvements to the press box or perhaps a remote concession stand area. So that's all a possibility, but what we have to cost out first are the sort of the nuts and bolts of this stuff.
I mean, it's nice to have, because a lot of times there are fundraisers, for particular sports, and here the poor kids are walking around, trying to sell things, and it would just be nice to have everything in one location for people. So, in the future.
I know, just a point of fact, some of the clients that I've worked with, K through 12 clients, much like yourself, many times they'll bring in a food trailer, a food truck, and serve off of that. So that might be an option for you.
And Tom Baker is with us. He ran from one event to another. Depending on when we would have a ribbon cutting for this field and this facility, we would either try to manipulate the fall schedules, football, soccer, and field hockey, manipulate so the early half of their season they're on the road and maybe finish at home, or borrow some space from neighboring districts to have some home games at Panis or Peekskill or
Yes.
whatever.
Other school districts that have been through this, typically when my peers and I get through our scheduling for fall, like there's one particular school district that's doing it right now. He requested, as Mr. Hochreiter said, as many away games as he could for the early part to most of September, to handle that. And they're just coming up. I think this week it's Pearl River School District. They just got on their turf this past week for the first time. So it's just a matter of working with neighboring school districts, working with my fellow athletic directors to gather away games as much as we can, utilizing whatever spaces we can in terms of field space in our area that we can do for that. But it's been done with other people, and I'm sure we can handle this.
And we've done it before in the past, when our fields
Yep, we
were
did it
in
one
optimal
spring season.
condition. I
Yes.
remember that.
Yes, we did.
Any other questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Actually, I did.
Okay.
You'd mentioned that you were going to roll in the discussion about the fence with the athletic area.
Yeah, so, I don't know, Armin, if you can go to the slide of the upper terrace. Yeah, one more. All
Yeah.
right, so where the long jump and those activities are, and where the shot put or discus, yeah, that will coincide with the maintenance road and the distance, what Corey was asking, distance of a security fence. And so I think once we zero in on that space and how much space we need, or we would need for athletics, we could have a better idea of planning for the fence. One question or one solution may be to secure the entire athletic area to the top of the page, which I think is the north, and secure it there where our property butts up against other residents, and then also the top left page. So if we could, we'll discuss that in committee to determine whether or not, that's the right fence line along the maintenance road, or to swing it all the way around. We can, but that is a very limited amount of space with this proposal, which is okay, because that area, when you look outside of the glass walls of the cafeteria, isn't the most desirable. So to eat it up with legitimate space is a good thing. And also to be able to cordon off that space for particularly Friday night football games. It's a madhouse over there. So if that space is dedicated, it helps corral everyone back to the football game.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So the last chapter before we go to budget status update is the new maintenance building. And As part of due diligence, we did study 2 potential locations, one right across from Frank G and abutting the student parking lot in this area, so that's location A. And then location B, which is indeed where we did develop the new maintenance building, is tucked in behind the little piece of forest across from the district office in this area. This is a very conspicuous location. It's right across from the main entrance to one of your elementary schools, and then also creating concern about maintenance vehicles in conflict with student traffic and so on. It didn't feel like the right location to put the new building, and therefore we studied this area in some detail. One of the homework assignments that we completed with Anthony Merlini is to identify all the pieces of equipment, and our team figured out the footprint, and that allows us to make sure we can accommodate each piece of equipment, whether it's inside or outside, and where it would be ultimately located. This maintenance building project allows us to collect equipment that's being stored and tucked in different areas and campuses and get it into one safe and secure location. It's going to allow your staff to do regular maintenance and repairs and again in a safe and secure location. So we've seen other districts make these types of investments, and indeed we will be building one of these in Croton Harmon in the spring, and so we're learning. We had some lessons learned there that we're bringing here to share with Henrik Hudson. The blue rectangle in this illustration is the proposed 4,000-foot footprint of the new maintenance building. The area in gray would be the enclosed yard. We're proposing to take back some of the scrub brush on the flanking side of the lower district office parking lot, and also some into the hill in this area. So as a conceptual site plan, we would relocate the dumpsters so that the garbage pickup truck would have direct access in this location. We have a separate driveway with a guard arm that would give access for the maintenance vehicles into the secure yard in this area. A fence on all sides to secure the yard space itself, and then access to the building in this area. So this will be a proper building. It'll be heated, it'll have insulation, lighting, security, electricity, and so on.
Do we have plans to maybe replant for some of the trees that we're taking down and put them back up, put other trees up somewhere else?
So I'm a lead registered or lead certified design professional, and that's always at the top of my list. We're not really taking, it's kind of scrubs and bushes that became tree-like. I wouldn't really describe them, we're not taking down specimen trees. There's some rocks that we want to pull out and that sort of thing, but we would be happy to explore that, and actually we're having updates to the topographical survey completed right now. There's a depression, and we suspect a lot of fill in this area. So we're really, I think, taking like an underutilized, not a great part of the campus and making it into a contributor. So these are, I don't want to share these with you in a lot of detail, but I just wanted you to see that we've completed the schematic design. Anthony Merlini is our main stakeholder that we meet with to talk about the plans. Another facet of the design, actually, I'll go back, is to have a covered area that's separate. The gate would actually make this separate and would allow athletes to come in inclement weather and be under a covered roof. And then we've actually created dedicated toilet rooms that would only be accessible to the students from the outside, so there would be no cross traffic between maintenance and athletes. And again, the way that the fencing is configured, everybody knows where they're supposed to be, and they'll be on their side of the fence, if you will. There is a single full bathroom for the maintenance staff, so there's a sink, John, and a shower. And that's a unisex, just one compartment there, and then a multi-purpose space for meetings and kind of a war room to have in there. The main part of the garage is in this area. There will be overhead doors, the necessary technology. We're also designing the building so that you can make investments in it over time. You'll be able to add, a lot of maintenance-related and repair-related systems that you don't have to have on day one that can come on day two. This would be a prefabricated metal building. And there are a number of vendors will have an open specification, so a lot of people can bid on this. We want, excuse me, we want to make sure, we want to make sure we get the right value for the district's investment.
Question, just when you talk, I'm sorry, when you talked about the building, and the ability to, you know, have the areas where things, would it be for mechanic type work, like where you'd have the lifts or anything, or would it just be,
I think of it as a tall garage. It would not have the recesses where the mechanic can go down and the lower
Okay, so
trench. It
it's-
wouldn't have lifts. At least at this point.
that's, okay, well, that's what I was wondering, if it was that kind of a, if that was the work that would be performed there, if it would be a dual purpose, or if it would just be more of, I guess, facilities maintenance, and that part as opposed to repairs and the bus garage type.
I think we want to hear about the pictures
I thought it was more such a
No, that's fine.
storage.
I was just wondering if the new building would be like the bus garage, you know, would have any sort of, you know, for mechanics, that kind of facilities, as opposed, or would it be more, you know, that's a little bit thing, storage.
Yeah, it's gonna be both. It's gonna be for maintenance of the machinery and everything like that, so if they're out plowing.
But it's not gonna be a bus.
No,
No, it won't be a bus.
That's what I'm saying, it's
It'll be
gonna,
like plow trucks and lawnmowers and weed whackers and equipment like that.
that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for the water, Anthony. That is our, those are our prepared remarks in terms of the development of the design. Again, we're seeking your blessing tonight to really charge forward with the technical documents so we can stay on track for construction next summer. Bob Bernice is going to just talk a little bit about budget.
So we've been part of the meetings that Farmland has had with the principals and the committees and all of that, which has been very beneficial to us when we're doing our estimate. Right now, we've completed a schematic estimate for the security projects. We reviewed Mike's schematic estimate on the fields, and we've developed a schematic estimate on the maintenance building. We're on budget on the security projects in the field. We're a little bit over budget right now on the maintenance building, but we still feel comfortable that we're going to get within our budgets with further meetings and meeting with the building manufacturers to get those costs reduced a little bit to get back on budget. Talking a little bit about schedule, we feel good on the schedule as long as we're submitting to SED middle of November, getting approvals in March so that we can bid March, April, and start construction on the fields June 1st on the buildings for the security. At the end of June, when school is let out, we can't start anything until then, and be completed before school opening in September. Maintenance building is going to take a little bit more time, but we'll start that once we get the approvals, probably June or the end of June, and that'll probably be done in the fall, completed.
All of these buildings are going to be done by September. Am I understanding you right? The security upgrades,
Yes,
you're going to be able to do that in the summer?
yeah, 9 weeks. That's normally the time. The biggest piece on the high school would be where the fencing is. And awarding that, you know, looking at the contracts to see how we award that.
Is there any kind of contingency built into your budget? So when you say it's
Yes.
going to be, okay, so what kind of percentage contingency?
We have right now a design contingency built in of 10% and a construction contingency of, I believe, 5%.
So with the one that you said looks like it's over budget right now, does that include the contingency or is that
Yes.
before the contingency?
No, that includes contingency.
Thank you.
We never want to eat into the contingency on the construction end. And then sometimes we'll change from the maintenance building, a new structure, have 5% renovations, we may use a 7% just for hidden items, hidden things in walls when we start opening up walls.
And this question I think might be more for Joe. if they go over budget, is there any kind of penalty built into it, or, what prevents us from going over budget?
Or demands,
Uh,
as we keep adding things.
a detailed specs and bids, reviewing all of the bid, that's all public information, so the bids are open publicly. You, the board, have to approve them. And before we would approve any bids that would take us over the Mendoza line, we would have a conversation with this team to say where do we scale back in order to make this work, and then we come back to the board and give you an update on which direction.
I have another question, and that's directed to you. What are we going to do if we're having construction at all of our buildings? What do we do with our summer programs that we have? Do we have alternate locations planned already?
The idea would be to isolate the work, and it is isolated to all of the main offices right now in the 4 schools. In order to keep summer programs, we would have to have alternative entrances. We would have to maybe consolidate more programs in fewer schools, or find different space.
Like the library, have we,
Yep.
had chats with maybe the public library, to maybe have certain classes there?
I think once we have an idea of how much space Bob and his team would need in order to do those upgrades, we would want to keep as many programs in the schools as possible. For example, today I met with Josh Cohen. He may have to move his entire main office function to the library for that summer. But then again, the library is almost the least accessible part of that building from an outsider's perspective. So we may need to chew up a classroom and have all the technology drops put in there in the kindergarten room. So, yeah.
Well,
we'll have-
I'm really concerned about parents dropping their kids off, where all of this is going to happen. And we're talking about making safety improvements. We certainly want to keep our kids safe as they're being dropped off and participating in summer programs. So I think we've got, a lot to work out. So,
The scheduling will be part of our further discussions with the committee. The elementary schools, your work area is in one location. At the high school, it's all over the high school. So that may have to be phased in.
that may
if
have to
there's
be
certain
redirected.
areas.
You're right, absolutely.
I actually have a question about that with the high school, because I know this school year goes relatively late until June 25th or 26th, something like that, and June is finals month, basically. There's a lot of construction and noise coming in.
We don't want construction and noise where we have finals going.
Yeah, we'll have to put together a schedule, and we may have to move some things around that last couple weeks of school in order to give these guys access quicker in order to be done by September 1st.
Yeah, the scheduling piece is more for the high school in the fields. We've already started talking about where the children have their regions testing and how all work will have to be worked
Right.
around there.
Right.
Schedules.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We do have a graphical schedule that charts, actually from when we were retained at the early part of the summer of 2018 through the fall of 19. And one of the pieces I just wanted to mention is that the blue dots represent the SED's new third-party review procedure. And if we were to submit these projects for a traditional building permit through the Albany traditional process, it's about a 40-week process right now. So that would mean we're not really starting these projects until the summer of 2020. And we made a recommendation, indeed we talked about this from the very first meeting, to make an investment in the third-party review process. The SED has developed a methodology where a third-party architect and engineer reviews our drawings in, let's say, 10 to 14 weeks, as opposed to 40. And that helps us take some of the risk out of the schedule. And I would like to have our building permits in hand in February. That's our goal. And then we can get out on the street. And the sooner we can get out to bid, the closer, the earlier in the year we can get out to bid, the better we are in terms of competing with other school projects that are out in the marketplace. So if we can get out in March, it's better than April, for example.
So what is what is the cost of the third-party review versus the state review? Because we're buying ourselves a year by doing this.
Correct. So in terms of order of magnitude, and we haven't, there are tables that we need to look at the sizes of the projects and assess. There will be 6 projects. The state will recognize 6 projects. So each of your schools plus the maintenance building. And then the athletics projects will be part of the high school project control number so that we can get building aid on the athletics projects. Really, really important. I'm sorry, your question again?
So the incremental cost of doing
Is
the accelerated review versus the state review?
I would like to come back and give you a final number, but order of magnitude is $50,000 for all the projects.
$50,000 to buy us a year. Which is-
Correct, and so just the escalation alone, and the loss of certainty in the schedule, we think is a good.
Yeah, that 50 is way high.
Okay, we get that extra.
What we're talking about is submitting them as a combined project, all the projects together, so you're not paying a fee for each individual project, you're paying one. So you get savings there. We just looked at
Just step up
combining
to the
the project
microphone, thank you.
in Pearl River, the middle school and the high school, and we saved them probably $20,000 by combining it. It would have been more like 40 to 50, and I think we paid about 25 to 30,000. These are smaller projects, so I'm estimating probably $10,000 to $15,000, but you're saving that in the time.
Well, and in costs too, because costs go up exponentially the longer you wait, so.
Well, it's a time value of money.
Right,
Saving
absolutely.
us a year.
Just to give
And
you an
for,
idea,
you know-
when we were in the same situation, when we were doing the EPC, and we did it through a third party, and it cost us $10,000. And those $10,000 paid back the first 3 months.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the website notes, but I can't download it right now.
No.
It's okay.
Yeah, can we upgrade our cell service?
We'll report back with the exact figures, and
That's what we're
part of the
talking
next
about,
steps.
keeping costs down.
That's right.
Here we go. Can talk to Laura.
So any other questions for Armand or the team?
No, thank you very much.
That was
Thank
great,
you.
really great.
I would sincerely like to thank everybody for coming to do the presentation. I would also like to thank our facilities committee, because I know how much time you have put into all of this. So thank you to everybody who's been invaluable in this whole process thus far.
And our next steps are, we're going to deconstruct this presentation as well as get some other images from Armand and his team, and we'll update our website, school-specific, in terms of what to expect. Right now, if you go to our website, you click under Capital Project, and you go to Furnace Woods, you'll see a one-pager on what the project will include. We'll add this information so folks can see the design and what to expect. We've also sent this presentation verbatim to all 5 principals, and I've asked them to put this on for discussion at their either October PTA meeting if they haven't had it, or their November one, and have made myself and Anthony available to come and give a very school-specific presentation. So for example, at Furnace Woods, we'll talk about Furnace Woods, but we'll also share with them what to expect at the middle school and high school. So we'll be on tour over the next 6-8 weeks at PTA meetings having these discussions also.
I know Mrs. Charisi had spoken about that last night at PTA, so that, you know, they're going to have the next presentation, the next PTA meeting, there will be a presentation. So I think that's really important for, you know, the PTA presidents to be aware that we're going to be doing this. So, thank you. Okay, with that, we move to audience comments on agenda items.
Really, I have one quick question, and then I have a question for the gentleman. The greeters, who are they going to be? Are they going to be our secretaries that are currently there? Are they somebody you're hiring that is going to be trained in security? Is it going to be our TAs? Who are they going to be?
Anthony, if you want to weigh in, some schools have the staffing that will be a greeter. Some schools we may need to hire folks, and certainly anyone new to the organization will be trained.
So it could be somebody existing like a TA, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, right now we're designing the space so we have the 3 areas to set up. So we have the 2 secretaries that we normally have anyway, and then we have the 1 additional space for the greeter. So right now, since we don't have that greeter individual,
Right.
it's going to be the 2 secretaries that are going to be vetting the individuals coming in and out, like they're doing now. And then we have other security personnel that we put in the buildings around the district. So, you know, as time goes on, we didn't want to limit it and just have 2 spaces in there and then
Right.
add a greeter, because then you have to build more construction.
Right.
So the future thought was to have that extra space there. Now, whether it'll be somebody that's there existing, or one of the guards that's there, they'll be there for a little bit of a day, or however, we haven't figured it all out with the logistics.
Okay.
But they'll definitely be trained.
Okay.
We have a security consultant through BOCES, and we have a security consultant that we have on our own on the side, and they do training with our staff and everything.
Okay, so we're not sure yet, but if somebody will then eventually be trained to sit in the position.
That's the program.
Okay, and then the other thing is, I'm sorry, Roger, can you go back to the Frankie Lindsay slide? Would that be a possibility? I also work at Frankie Lindsay and I'm a parent, and if you stand in the office when children walk in and they just stand there. And they wait for an adult. So if I'm looking at this, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to probably walk in from the hallway, from the corridor, right? They're going to walk in and there's going to be the greeter there who's handling the strangers walking into the building. They then have to loop around the corner in which they come to the copy machines before they get to find secretaries. It also is not very becoming if your greeter is, let's say, your TA or your security guard, and they have to come in to talk to your secretaries about pickup, about drop-off, about things like that. They're not seeing them around the wall from the copy area. So, excuse me, and I don't seem to think I know a lot, except that I designed my own house. So, could we flip the copy area to this corner, take the desk and flip it here, so that when you walk in, you see the secretaries? Only because I'm thinking from a child-friendly perspective, and what really happens in an office every single day. Kindergartners walking in, 3rd graders walking in, not knowing who to find. If they have to go find around the wall of the copy machine before they find somebody, you're going to have a lot of confused kids. It's just not child-friendly. It's not child-centered.
I know,
So
but this was vetted through the principals, from what I understand.
I understand, but principals are also not architects. So
No.
principal, and I understand, and they're all thrown into that thing. So
But
I'm just
that's-
throwing it out.
Not necessarily, you're assuming that greeter is not going to be there, but there
No.
could be this secretary could stay here during the day.
Well, that's why I asked who it is, but I have to tell you, it's right now that our guy, Ken, who's our security guy, he's not helping the kids.
Right.
He can help the kids, and not that he should be. That's why I'm asking, who is that person? So when they're walking in, who are they going to see? They're going to see a person that's sitting there, and they're going to be not looked at because they're not there to do that. And then the kid will have to find their way around. It's just not child-friendly. So I understand the challenges of Frankie Lindsay with the elevation. It's very difficult because you have so many different elevations, and I think you did a wonderful job of finding the way in.
Can I just share?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we're still here listening,
Mhm.
and I think we have concerns that's valid, and I want to
Sure.
and report back to the principal.
Yeah, I think we have to take that under advisement and
But I'm not gonna
maybe
point you-
relook at the
Oh, no,
plan.
no, absolutely. I understand that. I know I'm throwing something out.
It's a good comment, so let's listen.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you.
Even though it shows black line at the wall there, some of them may be illegal, you don't know.
Right, there might be a-
It might be a half.
Right, but even so, if a package
Okay. All right, next, we have 15 minutes, so next,
Michelle Piccolo.
Michelle Piccolo.
Hi.
Hi.
Carol's point about the finals, I definitely think that's far more important than meeting a deadline at homecoming.
So do we.
So just to reiterate that. And lastly, my question for you guys is, and this may be very stupid and ignorant question, but I in the past have heard that there are health concerns sometimes associated with turf. For that reason, I've never been a real fan of turf. So I guess, are you going to address those health concerns to make sure that whatever you do put down, because as the kids are running on the stuff, often it is tires that are chewed up or whatever else, so kids do ingest the fumes that come from those various things that are made, so their joints aren't hurt, but their lungs and, cancer-causing chemicals are there. So as a parent with kids that do play sports, are you going to address that?
This is a big concern. It's a big issue.
Mike, just make sure you speak into the microphone, because this is a big one.
Yeah, very good question. I think I'm glad it was asked, honestly. And we hear that a lot, questions like this. There has been a lot of reporting about infills over the years. From the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any definitive information saying that the ground rubber tires, the SPR crumb rubber, is a toxic health hazard, but there hasn't been a definitive answer either way. We've talked with the board and the facilities committee. Lisa asked some wonderful questions last week about infills, similar to what you're saying, and there are options out there that I know that the Board of Education, they're looking at right now, whether it's organic type of infills.
Like the coconut?
Yeah, cocoa husk or cork is another one. One of another material that we've used a lot downstate in the Rockland, Westchester County area is something we call virgin EPDM rubber. So it's rubber that is it's pre-consumer. It's before it leaves the factory, and they'll make it into crumb rubber before. So that's an option that I know that we're all considering. That there's a sand that is coated, that's a possibility, and they're all options that I don't think a definitive answer has been decided yet, but we're going to look at it. Just interestingly, just a point of fact, we do a lot of work with universities too, and at the university level, this isn't a discussion. For some reason, it's always the SBR recycled crumb rubber. Every project I've done, we've used. So it's more at K through 12 environment.
Kids are growing so much
Yeah.
there,
So I just finished a big project over in Nyack. There we used the virgin EPDM. But different school districts have a different view of it, and we're going to work with the facilities committee to make, and the Board of Education to make the right decisions.
Okay, great. And so I guess you guys will let us know what
Yes.
the decisions are
And-
made on that,
and
and
Michelle,
just from a,
Yes, we will.
health-wise.
Somebody will get back to you, and we will have future board meetings on this topic.
Great.
So thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Janelle McNeil.
I just wanted to say thank you. I know that this is a tremendous amount of work that you guys are all doing, and I greatly appreciate it, and the school is moving in the right direction. The only thing I had a comment about, or just an inquiry, was about the fencing at the high school. It just kind of doesn't make sense to me. I just want a little more clarification that you're putting up this fence, by the cafeteria where the glass wall is, but yet there's kids outside on the playgrounds. So is there fencing going to be, around perimeters of the schools? So I just don't understand the concept of putting this fencing outside a glass wall when there's other vulnerabilities at other schools. That's just my comment.
That was one of our questions. Darlene Garrett.
So if we use this third-party company to cut down the number of weeks, one, I'd like to know where the 50,000 may come from. Certainly time is money, so I get that, but it would be good to know where the 50 grand comes from. But you mentioned, I think it was you and Mike, I'm not sure, the laws of whether fire codes are being met and all of that would come from the state, if I originally have the note correct. We use the third-party company. How does that work permit-wise, and does the state review third party also, or what's the sequence of events? So third-party company does everything at that point.
So the single authority that we're designing the buildings to is the New York State Building Code, and then the State Education Department has an overlay code. And as the architect of record, I have a responsibility to make sure that the building complies with all those regulations. Now, historically, the State Education Department in Albany reviews the drawings for compliance with the code and then gives us comments. And what they've done is they've developed a strategy where they've allowed an outside reviewer, and their function is to review and make comments. They don't take on any liability. They're not administering the code. they're taking on the review responsibility, we would still get a list of comments. We make changes and updates to the drawings, and then we are furnished with a building permit. So then
Okay, so their findings go back to the state and
the state's involved in every step of the process. Like the drawings are still submitted to the state. Their project manager reviews the overall package for completeness and for compliance. The state has pre-vetted the architects and engineers that are qualified to be third-party reviewers. They have their own requirements and guidelines for how the strictness with which they review the drawings. And then all that data is fed back through the SED up in Albany, and then the permit actually comes from the SED.
So will we be bidding out to these third-party companies, or have we chosen one?
No.
Has the board decided that's the way we're going?
So 2 years ago, the state did an RFP for architectural and engineering firms that would like to be qualified to be third-party reviewers. That list is all vetted and it exists. And when we submit our drawings from Hendrick Hudson, the state will give us the available list for our firm to pick from, and we pick from a team from another part of the state. So we don't want a conflict of interest where another firm in Westchester is reviewing another firm's work, and that way it's sort of everything is appropriately administered. And then
SED decides on the fee. No matter who we pick, SED,
Correct.
it's a fee decided by SED, not by yours or by RFP. So,
Do we know based upon what calculation? Is it?
amount of money in each of the projects.
Oh, okay.
So what Bob and I need to collaborate on is how the projects are bundled. And if in some districts, the bundling strategy can reduce the overall fee because the reviewer is reviewing a sequence of projects rather than one. But I don't want anyone to take the number home for tonight, please. We're very early in the process, but there is a number.
Right.
And I'd like to go through the bundling strategy and make sure we get paid on everything and then report back. My point was that if it's 24,000, beautiful, but I don't want you to think it's just a tiny number, but it's definitely not going to exceed 50,000.
So it based upon how you bundle each project within the overall project, is it taken as an overall or each separate project and then?
It's taken as an overall if you submit it as an overall. So right now, let's say their range is.
You have to go up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Let's say their range is 1 million to 3 million, and we have $1 million project, and we have another $1 million project. Well, you're paying that fee twice. But if you put the two together, you're paying the fee once.
Thank you. Mike, you mentioned you worked on a similar project as you're working on here down in Long Island. What school was that with?
It was a Long Beach City School District, so southern half of North Nassau County.
Okay, and I think you also mentioned Croton. What school was that?
I didn't work at Croton, but I recently finished a rather large project across the river at Nyack.
And mentioned by Bob that we're over budget in the preliminaries on the maintenance building. Mr. Merlini, one of the things I don't see on the homework that was done, I think that was Mike, was on the small equipment. There doesn't seem to be any quantities on a lot of these things. So we're coming up with 4,000 square feet, but we actually don't have quantities on some stuff. We don't have quantities on storage pieces either. So there's some things missing. There's question marks to some of these. So that just may need to be reviewed before you decide, since we are over budget on that, maybe what truly those smaller lawnmowers do take up space, I know. So it may be good to have those quantities. One last point or question maybe is, if we're going to be doing everything at one time, that was mentioned earlier, to whatever the deadlines are, irrespective, are we having one construction company? Are we going to be bidding this and then picking one construction company or multiple construction companies?
We have to bid everything.
Right.
Lowest responsible bidder, and Bob will lead that process with us. But yes, everything's public, everything's a public bid. The board has to approve all related contracts for that work, and they need to meet certain thresholds that are set forward by New York State Education Department.
And will it be one construction company with multiple crews, or is the concept we're going to have multiple construction companies working on all 4 projects?
Mrs. Garrett, I don't want to cut you short, but you're way beyond the 3-minute limit. And is there any chance that you could submit your questions and Mr.
Oh, that was the
Hochreiter
last one.
could get back to you? Okay.
Sure.
As long as this is the last one, I don't want you to leave
So-
feeling that your questions were not addressed.
So the question is bidding strategy and how that works based on one bundle of projects or 6 individual ones.
Right, the Fields project definitely will be bid as a separate project, because that's a different type of contractor, and we don't want to pay for a general contractor to come in and add on for the cost of his site contractor and the turf contractor and the track contractor. So we've bid this in the past to field companies that do all that work individually. The security project, we have not looked at yet whether we're bidding that individually for each school or as a combined. We probably will be discussing that with the committee as actually both options and see what the best one is when we get the bids in. Our problem will be getting one bidder that is the low, and then we can't work around it. So we have to think that through a little bit further.
Thank you.
I just want to say too that these presentations are going to be done at each building. So if you do have further questions that you think of, that would be a very good place for you to attend one of the meetings at the elementary schools. So
Joe, is there also going to be an FAQ section?
I think that we also have to have a
All the schools.
Q&A on.
All the schools
All the
will
schools.
have through PTA meeting, but also as you've heard earlier, all 5 of the principals have been, played an active role in the development of these schemes and the input and some of the rationale. So please reach out to your principal, reach out to myself or Anthony with any specifics, but they have been in the loop, and they have, to the extent possible, signed off on some of these schematics and have weighed in as to why one design or Plan A is different than Plan C. So if you have those sort of very specific questions to your child's school, I would first start with the principal or let Anthony and myself know.
And I also think we should have a Q&A section on the website maybe
Sure.
for people to be able to ask questions and have somebody answer them.
Sure.
Is there anyone else who has signed up to speak? Okay.
There's already an FAQ section here, so just
Yeah,
needs to be
just,
expanded.
expand on it. Okay, thank you very much for everybody that came and asked questions. And again, thank you for staying. We sincerely appreciate it. And going forward, if anybody has any further questions that you can think of, please feel free to email